Turn up the dive, feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's so I remember I. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories are talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the group. Untold Radio Network, the secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Hey Untold Radio Network fans, want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
The paranormal, UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your host, Dr. Dean Bertram.
Well, greetings, all my fellow weirdos and weirdettes. Very Merry Christmas to all of you, and thank you for joining us on this Christmas night. That is, if you're here, where we're live for Christmas night at 9 p.m. Central. Otherwise, you might be listening to the show afterwards, either on Facebook or YouTube or X, where it streams, or on one of the many podcast platforms. Greetings and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, season's greetings, all the rest of it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm joined by my mother, who's sitting to my left tonight. Hi, Mum. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we've had a little Christmas celebration day here. I had hardly any sleep, as parents very rarely do, in the lead up to the holidays. And I passed out on my couch. I woke up literally about 30 minutes ago. And I haven't even had my turkey yet. My turkey dinner is still in the oven. So it wasn't the tryptophan. It was just the pure exhaustion. I'm going to say hello to a few people in the chat. There's a wonderful Ken Rock. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Ken. Merry Christmas to you. He says Merry Christmas to you as well, Mum. Our good friend Bob Antone is here. Merry Christmas, Bob, to you and your wonderful wife, Laura Flat Rockland, a.k.a. Matt Auckland. Many of these people have been guests on the show as well, of course. Merry Christmas to you as well, Flat. And I'll just start flushing some of them up because there's all kinds of regular loyal listeners to the show. It's so good that you could spend some of your Christmas Day celebrations are with us. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do the show live. It's always tempting to do a pre-record for the holidays, so you're not passed out on your couch and have to race up the stairs, just when you get out of slumber to jump on to say Merry Christmas to everybody. But I wanted to say Merry Christmas to you all. I'm so grateful for so many of you who are regularly with us all year round, and it would seem a little disingenuous to not be with you live on Christmas Eve. Steve Ward, who's a very good friend of mine, he now lives in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and works at the Mothman Museum and is a regular guest on the show. Thank you so much for joining us here. And I'm not going to let it come on the screen because for this internet age, you don't want weird people looking at your children, but my little daughter is here as well. So if you hear the occasional little voice off to the side, that would be her. Do you want to, did you want me to show something? She knows the content of the show. She got today amongst one of her many presents. Was this in your stocking from Santa or was it under the tree?
Santa. It was from Santa.
Yeah, but like,
exactly
it was from Santa though. Yeah.
I think it was in a game.
It's a Bigfoot squishmallow apparently, which was part of a squishmallow game she got.
This
So
is the card if you want to know the name.
So she wanted me to share it, or she's also slipping me the card now. It's apparently Benny Bigfoot. So Merry Christmas from Benny Bigfoot as well to everybody out there in the Talking Weird world. Are you enjoying your Christmas today, Mum? Though that's what I should
I'm
ask.
loving it. Yes, it's wonderful for me to be here. If I wasn't here and I was back in Australia, I would be totally on my own and have a few friends, but probably not doing anything. Whereas today has been an absolute delight to wake up next to or right with my little granddaughter who was just opening her stockings, which Santa had left overnight. And she was very good. She didn't rush in it straight away and say, she didn't wake me up to rush into it. She sat there for a while and I sensed she was awake. So I said, "Oh, you're awake?" She said, "Yes." And we waited for a while. And then she said, "Have you noticed there's stockings on the bottom of the bed?" So off she went. Oh, we did nothing but open lots and lots of beautiful small things. The stockings were quite large, but not big. So, sort of, probably 18 inches long. And they were stuffed, really stuffed. And she really enjoyed every minute of it and moved through it slowly. She didn't rush and she opened everything gently and went through it. And then once she appreciated what was there, she moved to the next one. But she didn't want to wake her up because she knew we'd been up very late last night. And so we waited till she'd finished her stocking and then she thought she heard him. So she went and woke him so that we could all get out to the Christmas tree. Beautiful morning, absolutely beautiful morning. Thank you all for coming in and talking with us tonight because it's a very special day to us. Christmas Day has always been our family day, and my only family now is my son and my little granddaughter, and it is my family. So to be here in this wonderful place, and of course in a white Christmas setting, which is something I wouldn't have back in Sydney, it's marvellous. And I thank you all. Wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Thank you. My girlfriend Samantha Krause, who was on the show last week, dropped in to say, "I want to send some hearts. Merry Christmas, baby. I hope you're having a nice evening with your family." And we have here Eric Joseph Merrick said, "Merry Christmas. Shout out to the vampires." I hear my little girl running around panting because she's been running up and down the steps, obviously, to my office loft tonight. She has another she's always wanted me to show this on. She must have remembered. I've never shown this on the show. This is another one of her Bigfoot shows. I think it's just toys rather. I think this is a Scribby Scrubby. It's actually a Yeti, I think, but it's still in the spirit of hairy hominids. Speaking of in the spirit with various things, one thing we never really had in Australia when I was growing up, but maybe it's more popular now, but it's something my daughter's been aware of for a little while. My mother probably really got her first exposure this year as the legends of St. Nicholas's darker companion. Primarily, of course, we all know Krampus. My daughter didn't have anything to worry about Krampus this year, apparently, because she was very good and got a lot of presents from Santa. But when it was Krampus night back on, I think, December 5th or December 6th, she was a little worried when it was Krampus night. Were you a little worried, sweetheart? No, she kept clinging to me the whole night and day, literally. She kept right behind me wherever I went. She wasn't going anywhere.
I probably shouldn't have told her it was Krampus night, but you've got to let the children know, because sometimes if they've been naughty, it's a good time of the year not for them just to be rewarded. But in the older traditions, of course, you were probably just as scared as you were of Krampus as you were as happy to see old Saint Nick. And of course, there was, I think, Krampus was an Alpine type, dark alternative to Santa. And I think in Germany as well, they had Belsnickel, who was another one of St. Nicholas's darker companions. So I think we could both reward and punish children, or would quiz them if they'd been good or bad. There's a number of entities like that. If you in your family tradition, because we never had that in my tradition in Australia, but if you in your family tradition were ever told about a dark companion to Santa who might punish you if you'd been naughty. And of course, in some traditions, Santa himself also did the punishing back in the day, which is interesting. But share with me in the chat, because I'd love to know if people grew up actually with an awareness of a Belsnickel or a Krampus, or of anybody else out there. And we have here as well from Eric, Joseph Merrick, saying they watched the 1979 film version of Dracula for the first time today and enjoyed it. Is that the I'm trying. That's not the Hammer one? Is the Hammer was a bit before that? Who's the vampire in that? If Melissa Dawn Harris is watching, she'd know. Or Eric, you can tell me. Tell me who it was. Oh, he was in. It was in North Texas. I heard that today. Eric said, "Enjoy our white Christmas up here." I have some family in Texas, and they said they got a heat wave in Houston, the Houston area today. So we were pretty cool. Cool up here. Is the last name of that actor Langelia? I can't even pronounce it properly, but please tell me if it is. My daughter is handing me. She's never allowed up here during the show. She's only very good, but I told her she could come up because it's Christmas. This is another type of cryptid creature. What is it? It's a dragon. It's a dragon. There's quite a few. What are they called? Scribble Scrubbies.
Yes.
They're unusual. No, but there's a name for them. They're like unusual beasts or something. Okay, show me this one.
It's
I'll share it with the audience.
One, but one of them glows in the dark, the greenish yellow.
Ah, she's got
in the dark like a rope.
Here, she said something interesting.
And the other one is just like a normal scribble. But I brought both of them up.
She's handed me two different kind of pterosaur ones, and the one that glows in the dark, one of them glows in the dark. She's very, she's kind of semi-transparent on the green screen, but this one glows in the dark, and she correctly identified it because it glows in the dark as a ropin. A ropin, of course, is a cryptid.
Named her
Glow. Okay, a ropin apparently is the cryptid pterosaur, and there's pterosaur reportings all over the world, including in Texas that we were just talking about, where my very good friend Jason McLean had a pterosaur sighting himself back when he was a boy. Jason McLean, of course, is a regular guest on this show, and he also used to be my co-host on the old Mysterious Library show, which was always so on the Untold Radio Network. But ropins were essentially the name for pterodactyls, which was seen in Papua New Guinea. And Chloe, being a Monster Quest kid, raised on Doug Hychek's Monster Quest. Doug Hychek, of course, is the founder of Monster Quest, and also the founder, or the creator of Monster Quest, and the founder of the Untold Radio Network. Chloe knew what a ropin was from a very small age. So when she got a glow-in-the-dark scribble scrubby pterosaur, she said, "Well, that glows, so it must be a ropin, like the stories from New Guinea." Let me just go back to the chat just a little bit here. There's no snow here in southeast Michigan. Hold on, Chloe. You can talk again in a second. Just let me just look at this. Lots of people talking about Dracula in the chat. One of the interviews they watched on this show, they read Bram Stoker's Dracula. That must have been with Melissa Dawn Harris, I'm guessing, either when I was on her show, The Order of the Velvet Bite, or Order of Velvet Bite Radio, which she deals with vampires and similar materials, or perhaps when she was a guest on my show talking about vampires. You can have your toys, and you'd be good for a second, sweetie, and you can get back to show me something else in a minute. So, and my mother watched Krampus, the Christmas movie, with me the other day as well, the Dark Christmas movie by Mike Dougherty, the director also of the wonderful Trick or Treat Halloween film. What did you think of the Krampus movie?
I have seen lots of Halloween type movies because both my sons were always into all of that. That was probably, and I'll be criticised greatly for saying this, the worst movie I've ever seen. It really left me like, I don't believe it.
You don't want to believe about Krampus.
I don't want to believe it. No, it was really over the top. Brilliant acting in it, but oh no. I won't go out in a snowstorm ever, let's put it that way.
Nixon just mentioned Monster Quest and Destination Unknown. I think, was Destination Unknown I think that was Doug Hycheck's Bigfoot show, maybe before Monster Quest, which, if it's the show I'm thinking of, kind of was when we first started to see people who later became stars of the cryptozoological world. Like I think Matt Moneymaker was on that show before Finding Bigfoot, and maybe Bobo and Cliff were on that show, but it was a very early pre-Finding Bigfoot, if it's the show I'm thinking of, Nixon, tell me if it's not, pre-Finding Bigfoot, pre-Monster Quest show, Destination Unknown. I think it used to be floating around online somewhere and you could still watch it. Totally worth checking out. Still nobody in the chat has told me if they did have any dark companion stories, and they were raised with tales about Krampus or Belsnickel or anybody else. Of course, also, I think it's in Finland. Is it in Finland or is it in Iceland? Somewhere like that. My daughter's running up and down the stairs again. They had essentially the Christmas cat. And the Christmas cat was this giant cat, and I think they still believe it, that prowled the lands on Christmas Eve and would devour you if you weren't wearing at least one new piece of clothing. So I guess it was, too bad if you were poor back in those days in Finland or wherever the devil it was. The Christmas cat would get you. And yesterday I picked my daughter up from her grandparents who live in a town nearby, her mum's, where she'd spent Christmas Eve. And I picked her up. She spent Christmas Eve even the night before. And I picked her up late Christmas Eve. And she had a beautiful new fox shirt on. And I explained to her that she was lucky she had a new piece of clothing on, because tonight was the night that the Yule cat prowled, looking for people who didn't have any items of clothing that were new on and devour them. So yeah, we were so I guess coddled in so much of the modern West, where we were never taught about the dark, or I never was a thing in Australia. These dark alternatives that prowled around at Christmas. And also, of course, in I think many of the many European countries, they had a belief that you had to leave food out on Christmas Eve, not for Santa. Maybe that's part of where the story comes from. Not cookies and an eggnog drink, or cookies and milk, or cookies and beer, as we used to do in Australia. My daughter last night left out cookies and eggnog for Santa, but you left food out. I think often rice puddings or some type of pudding. Maybe not rice, I don't know, some kind of pudding for the little people, for the fair folk, because if you didn't leave them a nice warm treat on Christmas Eve, in the coming year, they would terrorize you potentially and cause trouble in your homestead or your farm or wherever you lived. So you left out a treat, just not to appease good old Saint Nick, but you left out a treat to appease the fair folk for the whole year. Ken just says, thankfully he's not living in Finland because he has not wearing anything, no new clothing. Yes, my darling, my daughter wants to show something else. Oh my gosh, these are wonderful. These are her own creation. Make sure I've got them. Your best one. She's also a keen model maker. She has this wonderful stuff I didn't have when I was a kid. It's like Play-Doh, I guess, but it's like modeling clay that air dries. And she's constantly making cryptidy type things. And these are things.
There were two other ones, but
there were two other ones. Okay, let me show. Yeah, I know you broke some of them. Let me show these two. I think she got these from. There was a tradition in this part of the world of lumberjack myths of legends of weird creatures of the North Woods. And Shad Lewis, who sent me a wonderful Krampus Christmas card, speaking about Krampus this year. Chad Lewis wrote a book on the myths of the legendary beasts of the lumberjack culture of the North Woods. I suppose lumberjacks would tell each other these stories around campfires at nights. And he wrote a wonderful book, and he gave a copy to Chloe in person when we went to see him speak at a local library a number of years ago. And she wants me to show you, she's made a couple of the creatures. This is, what's the snake one called? The hoop snake. And what does a hoop snake do? It puts its tail in its mouth and it kind of rolls around. So that's a hoop snake, as you might be able to see. Very cute little hoop snake. What's it named?
I named it Hoop.
It's named Hoop. And what's this one?
An axe handle hound that I named Axe.
This is an axe handle hound that she named Axe. And they kind of look like they've got a head of an axe or something, don't they?
Kind of like they're axe shaped.
And they got a long body.
Long body, so they're kind of like a dachshund or something, but they're more shorter still, and they're more like axe shaped. And you can see why an axe shaped hound would be a popular tale among lumberjacks who would always be wielding axes. My favorite creature from that kind of mythology or that type of legend, of course, is the hide behind. the creature that's so slim it can hide behind you, or it can hide behind a tree, and
Or itself.
it can hide behind itself, as my daughter just said. It's so thin, and you can never get to see it until it's too late, and it gets you. And reports of supposedly of lumberjacks and people like that going missing in the woods in the old days were kind of relegated to the hide behind got them, was the tale that the lumberjacks would tell. And of course, it's always made me think of David Paulides stories where people just disappear in the middle of nowhere in the woods. I wonder if some of these stories are based on things which actually were taking place. The hide behind certainly sounds like a wonderful allegory for whatever does take people in missing 411 type cases. I can't show that. That's too big. Now she's got a wonderful colouring book of birds. She got a vintage one that she'd been asking for from the 1960s, back when colouring books were big and different. And I don't know, I think the paper was a little brown. It's certainly faded here. But I don't know, do you have any creepy ghost stories or anything you can tell on Christmas related? Any darker Christmas tales you can tell on this Christmas night, Nana?
Well, no, not completely, but I do remember, we always believed in Santa when we were younger. And we used to, because we lived in suburbs, but it was early days and it wasn't really developed. There wasn't a proper made road and everything. And we had what we called an outhouse, an outside toilet, right? And that was always a worry to go there. You used to always worry when you had to go there. And we used to have to walk. We didn't have steps because my dad was still building the house. We had a ramp to get out of the higher level down to ground level. And when you got to the bottom, because there were no street lights or anything, when you looked up the side of our house, it was just pure black, pitch black. And we had to walk down to the outdoor toilet, which was probably another 50, 60 yards away from the bottom of these stairs. So you'd get to the bottom of the stairs and you'd hold your breath. You wouldn't even look up there because you knew how dark it was, and you'd run down. And while one went into the facility, the other one would stand with the back against the door. And then when the other one came out, you'd do the same. And then when you both were ready, you'd look around, but everything was black, like it was just black around you. And there's light in the house, but no lights outdoors showing you the way. And you'd have to race like mad to get up there. Well, at one stage, about this time, or maybe a little bit later, there was a whole pack of dogs which were actually people's pets that had formed what you would say, I suppose you'd call it a band of dogs, and they were going around rioting, really going in a bad group, barking loudly all around our suburbs and the other suburbs that were near to us. And we were terrified because we could hear them in the night howling when they were coming around. And they killed lots of pets. We had some neighbours, because we had really big suburban blocks in those days, lots of neighbours lost their pets. The dogs ate their pets, didn't really eat them as a food, they just killed them. All our chickens were killed once. Went down one morning, 26 chickens all dead in the yard. They didn't even bother to eat them. And so every time we went out at night, we had this feeling that the dogs were going to come and get us. So they never did, which was wonderful. But we just had this, and I suppose that a lot of children even today sometimes have this thing about the dark, like you don't know what's out there. And because we were also told there was a hermit lived down the bush or not all that far from us, you just had this thing in your mind that someone was out there. You couldn't see them, couldn't see anything, but you just couldn't get back inside quick enough, so that's sort of my audio. And I was quite young then, and because I was the eldest, my sister was 2.5 years younger than me, I was doing this and taking her and protecting her when I was only about 5, and she was 2.5 and I was 5. But Mum and Dad thought, I was all right. They didn't think that I was scared. I was terrified.
I think Samantha, my girlfriend, was talking a little bit about her grandparents' property the other week when we were talking about weird things in central north Wisconsin, around the Warsaw area. And I think they had an outhouse, and some of those stories, I don't know if she told them or not, but I know I heard stories involving people seeing weird things when they had to go to the outhouse late at night. It would have been scary if you were a little kid and you had to wander out in the dark and go potty in the middle of the night. I guess that's why often in some northern hemisphere type climates they had, I guess that's why they had chamber pots, particularly in the winter, because you wouldn't want to have to go out of the bedroom outside to use the bathroom if it was 10 below or something like you can get here at nights.
No.
Especially a little kid, a 5-year-old needs to go potty. You're not going to say, okay, go down the side ramp through the ice, slippery ice, and go potty when you're going to freeze to death if you fall in the snow. And I wonder if that's the same reason that there are more traditions of the Dark Companion of St. Nicholas and other strange things in Christmas in the northern hemisphere. And perhaps there had been, maybe some of it had travelled to Australia early on, although in the English tradition I don't think there is as much of the Dark Companion as there is in Germanic traditions, but there certainly is in the English tradition the tradition of telling ghost stories, which I think you and I talked about last Christmas, Nana, and that's an English tradition. And that's, of course, the most famous example of a ghost story at Christmas is Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. But it comes down to us even in Christmas, pop Christmas songs, like there'll be spooky ghost stories, The line in that song is a reference to the fact that people used to tell ghost stories at Christmas. But for whatever reason, certainly in Australia, when I was a kid, there were no hints of a Krampus or anything else. And you can see why maybe those things would be forgotten when the nights outside aren't so cold and threatening and ominous. While in the northern hemisphere, the idea of ghost stories and dark companions and Yule cats seems to be almost begged for by the weather and the danger of the season and the realization that, death and darkness are so close at hand all the time. Or when you're living in the southern hemisphere and it's the exact opposite, the nights are much shorter and the days are much longer, and it's so warm it doesn't seem likely that you're going to freeze to death if you fall going to the bathroom at night, and you're not probably going to starve to death in the middle of the summer in Australia the way you could have in the olden days, starve to death in the middle of the winter if you lived rurally and you hadn't got all your meat and all your crops and everything else and all your firewood and everything else prepared for a season of harshness. So maybe that's why the dark goes so well with Christmas stories within the northern tradition. Eric Joseph Motek asks, do you have much experience ghost hunting of those who wanted to go with an infrared camera in a group? I myself have never really ghost hunted. There might very well be people in the chat. There probably usually are. So if anybody wants to chime in for Eric in the chat. No, I've never really gone ghost hunting. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to be interested in Ouija boards and things like that. But as an adult, as fascinated I am with much of this material, I very rarely partake in looking for the things in real life. Although we did go last summer, my girlfriend and I, with some of our children, we did legend tripping type, trips where you go looking for local places that were meant to be haunted, but it wasn't like at night with, EVP, meters and, infrared cameras and the like. So no, but people in the chat, please get back to Eric if you have experiences ghost hunting. And Ristol 6867 says 50 yards to the outhouse in the dark as a child. Nope. You're right. It would be scary even if you were in Australia. But it'd be particularly scary. I've noticed something since I've lived here, and I've had to do chores outside at night of one kind or another. It might be snow removal. It might be there's a problem with my chickens. It might be 100 different things. But everything is always, as anybody knows, in any hemisphere, things tend to be at least twice as hard when you're doing them in the dark. Perhaps if you don't have a torch, 10 times as hard. But if you add the cold weather to that, everything's not just twice as hard, it's twice as hard again. So to have to go outside in the snow, as I've had to a lot recently this season. Could you not yawn quite so loud, sweetheart? My little daughter's there yawning. It can get to be, it's very tough. So again, the weirdness of this time of year. And here is Melissa Dawn Harris, Order of Velvet Bite, which I talked about how she's been on the show before talking about, I think, vampires, as well as she's talked about serial killers and other weird, wonderful things on the show. And you should really check out Order of Velvet Bite, her radio, her podcast channel. And you can get that. I know it's on I know it's on YouTube. I think is it on Rumble as well, Melissa? Say if you want to drop in the chat all the places it's available. I'll certainly read it out because it's a top show. Melissa's a podcast veteran. She's been doing this for years, and her shows are always so great. And I hope that both you and Mike are having a wonderful Christmas period. So I think you're about to say something, Marl. I jumped into my little diatribe.
No, it's fine. No, can't think of a lot of things. I mean, I can't even remember whether I have told this on here, but there was another time, and it was in the summer, so it's sometime around the Christmassy time. And my husband and I he used to jog. I couldn't jog because I had reasons not to jog, but I used to walk. And we used to all, he'd go one way and I'd go the other way. We'd do about, which is quite good, 9 kilometres. And he'd jog. And so, of course, he'd jog one way and I'd walk the other way. So we'd meet up 2/3 closer to, he'd turn up 2/3 closer to me than I would to him. But we always sort of passed in a similar area or in somewhere in that vicinity. And one of the nights, it was on dusk, really just getting towards dark. The street lights were starting to come on. And we both walked exactly, he ran the same route and I walked the same route, but in reverse. We'd go reverse. We'd always go reverse. And where we usually tended to pass one another, I went down this street, and it was a particularly creepy street for some reason. One of the houses had a big stone fence, really high, about 8 feet tall, all the way around, and which went halfway down this section of a road that I had to go down. And there was, as I got halfway down, and it's really dark, not many streetlights, I heard an owl in the tree, which, spooks you a little bit in the dark. And I'm walking, I did my usual walk, didn't vary, just kept going. And as I kept going, I thought, where's my husband? Where is he? I haven't passed him. Like, we couldn't have gone past one another without seeing one another. There's no way that would ever happen. Anyway, I went all the way home, and finally he turned up and he said to me, "Where were you? I didn't see you." Neither of us could work out, and we always put it down to what they call it, a time shift.
Or time slip or something.
Slip. I really believe that, because there is no way ever this had happened. We just couldn't get our minds around it. So after that, I wasn't so sure about going off on my own in the dark, because when I was a young girl, I was followed home from the railway station, quite a considerable distance. And I was about 17. And I remember I'd been to night school after work, and I had high heels and stockings on, and we didn't have really good made roads. So when I got to a point where I realised this guy had come out of the train and was following me, and we'd gone across the railway bridge, and I thought, I've got to run, but I can't run in my high heels. So I took my high heels, I still had stockings on, didn't take them off. I ran so fast, but on the way home I was dropping into a friend's to do babysitting for them, the only way I could earn money. And I ran so fast, I didn't even get a hole in my stockings. I can't believe it. I look back at this and it's one of those freak things. And so when I got there, but I did ring my dad, because I was still about, not quite half a mile from home, but I wasn't going to go by myself from there. And my sister was babysitting, and then my dad used to come to relieve me, bring my sister, take her home. And I told Dad, and he said, "No, well, you can stay, but you're not coming home on your own. Get the people to ring me when they get home." And to this day, I just don't know where the guy got to, because obviously he must have turned around, gone back or something. But I wasn't turning around to wait and see. But it was just one of those eerie things. People I never thought of it then. Now girls getting out at night, you would be worried. You could be getting followed quite easily. But it just never happened in our suburb. I mean, we were in a sleepy type suburb. It wasn't a kind of suburb where people pass through, strange people following you, or, this never happened. And I suppose that put me off travelling at home by myself, coming home at night after going to school, so. But
it goes to show those things can really happen anywhere.
Just things, So I suppose, we've all got our one thing in our life where it's been strange and weird, and, and you never want to do it again because you don't want it to happen again.
The time slip story, though, when you and your second husband were walking in the opposite direction but should have crossed each other. I know the exact route you were talking about, and you should have been able to see each other. But the owl thing's interesting as well. You said you saw an owl that night when you were, because owls are a big part of paranormal and strange phenomena. There's something which is often reported in alien abduction lore. Of course, anybody familiar with Twin Peaks knows the line, "The owls are not what they seem," but it's from things like this. Mike Cleland wrote a book, I think it's called The Messengers, about the involvement with owls in paranormal phenomena. They're a constant. Often the owl, whether it heralds something or whether it's something else appearing as an owl or whether it's somehow just connected with the weird and the unusual. I think the fact that you saw an owl that same night, that you had what you referred to as possibly a time slip, certainly where you and your ex-husband passed each other. It seems very strange. Very strange story.
It is.
Super weird.
Not many other, thank goodness.
No, well, it's good that you haven't had many. And I think we've talked before about it. It might be worth, because we probably are having a slightly different audience. It's a different Christmas again. The house, I guess my childhood home where I grew up, we got what some people would say pareidolia, but there were things that looked like faces in the tiles, in the bathroom, in the floor. And then one time we had somebody who was, I guess, because my dad was in the Navy and he did also other business. He was both in I guess what do you call the part-time Navy, like the Naval Reserves. And he was away often doing that, but he was also often away on business in his day job. And so although my dad was very handy, we often had a handyman who had to do things when he was traveling overseas with either the Navy or with his work. But we had a handyman tell us a story which kind of recontextualized those faces in the tiles. Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, well, in our house we had what today would be referred to as a powder room, because it was just a toilet with a beautiful vanity. It was really a lovely room, and just nice. You didn't think anything would be wrong with it. And the first time I thought I was dreaming, when I went in there one time, one of the tiles, we had tiles which were very Greek, sort of unusual shape, little tiles that married in with one another, and they were browny, bronzy colour, and they did have a bit of glint in them, just a little bit of glint in them. And one of the tiles, and I never spotted it before, and I thought, there's something wrong with that tile, and I couldn't think what it was. And I told Dean about it, and Dean went in. The next time he went and he looked, he said, "You know what's wrong with that, Mum? It's got a face in it." And I went back, and lo and behold, it was a face in the tile, as if it had been printed in there. You couldn't. It's really funny. Every time you looked at it and you wondered what was wrong, you couldn't figure it out. And then when you figured out it was a face, it was scary. Anyway, this chap, we had this handyman. He was actually a carpenter, very nice guy, older guy. And he came we were refurbishing the front door area, which was next to the powder room, because we wanted to put our front door out further and have a sheltered cover for the front door, where you walked into the shelter first and then into the house. Anyway, he was doing this, and the day he was in there, he said, he said, "I'm not a psychic or anything, but he said, I just have to tell you that I've had a lot of experiences and been to houses where I know things are weird." And he said, "I don't know if you've ever noticed strange things happening here." And I thought, oh, we hadn't really at that stage. I hadn't thought of anything strange. I mean, you always heard noises through the night, but you just thought they were animals in the bush. You never thought about it. And he said, because he said, "I can tell you now, someone has been murdered or killed and buried under this house, right under where we were seeing this face in the tile." And I thought, I didn't know what to say, and I told Dean the story later. And
I think I heard. I don't think you told me. I think I was there when he was telling the story, and I don't think it probably wasn't the greatest story to hear when you were a kid. It was something. I don't know how old I was, 8 or something. I was younger than 10 anyway. It was it bothered me for many years in that house. That tile bothered me even more.
That's right. It's really.
And I heard weird things in that house growing up, like footsteps that shouldn't have been there, and all kinds of other things.
Right, yeah. Well, Alan, my second husband, one night he was coming out of that room, and just as he did, he'd open the door, and he was just to a black figure and flashed past him. He couldn't see the figure, but it flashed past him, and he was worried because it went up through the door, literally, in the bedroom where Dean was. And he said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "No," because I was not far from where he was, and I was just coming out of our kitchen about to walk up that hall, and he'd just come out, was walking out of this room. So that thing had passed me too, but I'd never seen it. And, yeah, so weird things there, and I'm sure it's because of the whatever happened in the house before we were there. Yeah,
it's super super strange stories. I remember that one time when I was, I guess, in my not early, probably mid-teens. It was when I was later in high school. I remember something slamming into the side of my bedroom wall, but it sounded like it was on the outside of the house. It was a brick house, so it wasn't like something just hit the siding. It would like shook the room from, because the house was kind of on, I guess, bush, really, what we would say forest or woods in America, but you say bush in Australia. Even though it really was forest, it was very dense. It was more like rainforest there. And I remember that it was clear to, I mean, I was old enough then not to be like a little kid too, I suppose, superstitious, but it seemed to me that whatever hit the house that night wasn't a normal thing hitting the house. It wasn't like here you hear a branch fall on the roof of the house or something, and you know, okay, I know what that was. It was something big colliding with the house, and it seemed to me even at that stage in my life, and I don't think I was overly superstitious or anything at that age, but it seemed supernatural. So that, I mean, there's lots of stories I could tell about that house, but there seemed to be something strange there at times, whether it was from the woods itself, whether it was something buried under the house like our carpenter handyman suggested, or whether there was something just weird in the area. There definitely was something there that I don't think was physical, I don't think it was explainable in a kind of a physical interpretation. I would say it was something supernatural, something paranormal, or I don't know, interdimensional, choose your term. It was something that wasn't of this world at that property.
Well, I don't know whether storms come into it or not, but we used to get a lot of storms in Sydney, but sometimes they were serious. Trees were blown over. But one night we had this storm, which was a very short storm, and we heard this bang through the night, which woke me. And I walked out into our kitchen living room, and a painting had fallen off the wall. So I assumed that's what made the bang, because it was a very loud bang. And this was a big painting, and I thought, I thought, oh, well, that made the noise. So just put it out of my mind, went back to bed and didn't think about it. Next morning, very early in the morning, there's a knock on the door. And the chap from next door, and they had a very big yard which went down past our house, and there was nothing there. And one of the brothers who lived there with their dad, he worked for what they called the Sydney County Council, which was the electricity people in those days. And he knocked on our door and he said, you know that your big tree just outside you was outside Dean's bedroom, actually, which was probably 4 feet from the bedroom at the most, is dead. And I said, what? I said, nothing wrong with it yesterday. And he said, well, no, there probably wasn't. But he said it was struck by lightning last night. It's dead.
Wow.
It's black, cooked.
That's a weird
and I mean,
natural phenomenon.
Yeah, it was a natural phenomenon, but it was a scary phenomenon.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Because it was close to the house. And then after that, we had trees that were close to the house and begged the council sometimes to let us take them down, and they never would. But this one was a perfect example. But luckily, and him being in the county council and him being right there on the spot, he didn't hesitate. He went and got his truck and his chainsaws, and down he took the tree before anyone could argue about it. And but it was dead. Just there wasn't a dry leaf on it. It was just killed by this horror. And it would have to be a very strong lightning strike to do that. And yet the only noise I heard, and it hadn't woken the boy's dad, and the boys hadn't woken, was this picture falling down in the kitchen.
Yeah, the lightning. Well, maybe the lightning strike was so powerful it shook that.
Yeah.
That picture of the wall, probably.
Yeah.
Nixon 6786 says he had the same thing, Dr. Dean. He means the knock I had on, the bang on the thing. And he said he was I have brick 8 feet up. Funnily enough, that room I was in was the house was only a 1-story house, but on one side of the house, the windows were very high up off the ground, in the back bedroom, which became my bedroom later. That's where it happened. And it was probably brick up at least 7 to 8 feet. So same kind of situation. That's what was so weird. It was kind of brick below my bedroom window. And then whatever it was slammed right in there. You telling the story about the neighbor coming over in the morning reminded me of an interesting story. I don't know if I've ever told it on the show. before, but a girl I dated in Sydney for many years lived to a suburb to the north of us, but still in the northern districts of Sydney. And her father told me this story, who's now passed, God rest his soul. He was a lovely man from England originally. And funnily enough, their neighbors were also from England originally. And he told me this story a number of times, because obviously he was somebody who was interested in the paranormal and UFOs and the weird. And he said they had a breathing noise that seemed to be coming from the walls or in the cupboards in their kitchen. And he couldn't locate this thing. And it haunted them. I mean, I use haunting in the broader sense, but essentially this was a haunting. And they'd hear it breathing. It just is for, I don't know, weeks at a time. They'd hear it intermittently. And he said he looked everywhere for it. And he was looking in the cupboards. He was trying to look in his roof if it was something up there. He could not locate where the sound of this thing came from. And then he said eventually, because it was quite regular, it just stopped, like it had gone. And then he was out one day, and his neighbor, who was a friend of his, he was out checking around his roof, like looking in the gutters and trying to, looking under the tiles of the roof. And he said, "Hey, mate, what are you looking for?" And he said, "It's the darndest thing. There's something. It's like it's in the walls of my house, like breathing." And he described it as breathing the exact same way. So they always figured it, whatever it was, and he did not think it was an animal ultimately, but whatever it was it was breathing deeply, like a human deep breath in and out. Had moved from my ex-girlfriend's parents' house to the neighbor's house, and supposedly it left there eventually as well. I wonder if you talked to the next neighbor over, if they'd been haunted by a breathing in the cupboards and the walls of their house. So the strange stories from the northern districts of Sydney. We have a comment here from Eric Joseph Murtek as well. "We moved into a house as a teenager. My sister found a wig board in the closet. A lot of bizarre things happened while we lived there. People lost their minds, and I always sensed a presence there." I think there are places that, whatever is doing the haunting, I have no idea, but I think there are places where there is more, there are more, paranormal or strange or unexplainable forces. And Eric continues and says, "I always felt like there was someone there. I felt it the most when I was alone, like a negative entity was there." I'm sure something was there, an entity, an energy, a Lord knows what. But there are places which are either attract these things, or places where these things, maybe the place itself generates these things. Who on earth knows? I don't know if we're going to go for the full hour, not because we could, and we easily could, but it's a funny little non-paranormal Christmas story, although it's weird, not really weird in any normal sense. I bought a turkey, as I always do, and put it in my fridge about 4 or 5 days ago. It was frozen from the local little market near me. And when I went to take it out this morning from the fridge to cook it, it was still rock frozen solid. By the time I defrosted this turkey and got the neck and everything else out of it, we're using water again and again and again. We put this turkey in probably 3 hours after I planned to put this in, because it should have already defrosted. So my turkey I still have not eaten. My family's turkey is still in the oven, and it's probably finally now. I checked just before the show; it still wasn't done, but it's probably almost done now. So unless anybody in the chat has a specific question for me, or for my mother, or unless my mother has any parting words, I think we're going to call it Talking Weird about 10 minutes earlier tonight than we usually do, so my turkey doesn't burn.
I'd just like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for supporting my son all year. I watch him myself back in Australia and don't miss a show. So I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, rest of the Christmas, and wish you all a happy and healthy new year coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. I certainly echo my mother's sentiments there. I do appreciate each and every one of you for listening in, whether this is your first night, or particularly those who are regular viewers, regular listeners, regular audience members. I'm glad I got to come and say Merry Christmas to many of you in person, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your holiday period. And if you've still got something to eat tonight, enjoy it. Maybe you can, have a drink or some snacks and watch a Christmas movie, maybe a dark Christmas movie like Krampus. Or,
No, don't watch Krampus.
saying watch a happy one. Or Rare Exports is another cool darker Christmas movie. Or The Fat Man we watched the other night with Mel Gibson finally. That was fun.
Good. That was good.
It's more of an action Christmas movie. That was fun.
Yeah.
Regardless, whatever you're getting up to tonight, please enjoy the rest of your holidays. Merry Christmas. God bless you all. Thank you for joining. And as I always say, please keep it weird.
Bye.